Robert Kirkman says a character was gender swapped to address a comic book shortcoming. What is this?
I was pissed off.
If you would, Badger. Yeah.
One of the downsides of Invincible is Corey Walker and I were like 23 and 21 when we started the book. And your default, when you're not really paying attention, is yourself. Every time we introduce another character, oh, look, it's another white male. Who knew? It's just a shortcoming that we hadn't quite noticed and done our due diligence to correct. So that's why
he
admits
he's a racist and misogynist,
even though there are plenty of female characters in the Invincible universe.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you think about this sort of revisionist history here? Him looking back. I mean, I don't know. Does he feel the need to apologize?
I think he should have just shut up, man. Because here's the thing. I'm not a big. I won't say I'm not a fan. I've never read the books. You know, I think I read the first issue of the very first Invincible. So I don't have skin in the game when it comes to like the lore and the history of Invincible. As far as this character Tech Jacket is concerned, I know that this character, the male version, has already had its own book. It's already its own established character in the universe. I personally like Zoe, this character. I think she's actually a good character, right? I don't know why they couldn't have just made her an original character or something instead of taking Tech Jacket's place. But I hate the fact that he had to even give this apology or give this explanation as to why he made the switch. He should have just shut up and just let it be what it is.
I like the virtue
His stuff is already entertaining. Like, people love Invincible. People love The Walking Dead. There's no need to do this revisionist history. This is so COVID coded. When you had like all of the showrunners of different shows coming out, like the Friends showrunners came out and they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that all of our characters were white," and blah blah blah. You don't need to do that anymore. People like what you've done. Obviously, they're big fans of it, and they were popular franchises. And you don't have to come out here and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do things differently. We saw it differently when I was 21. I was so young." You don't have to do that.
Yeah, but they're compromised. They believe the shit.
So ridiculous.
Too. They like virtue signaling. I guarantee you, this is the thought process behind Black Snape. Like, assuming JK gave it the okay, this is how she internalized it. I was implicitly racist by writing what I know, and I didn't put enough diversity. And so now, of course, whatever the dumb shit is that they've convinced themselves.
Yeah, I don't like any other reason being used for this type of decision. If it's not for creativity's sake or for who gives the best performance, what is going to be the best creatively for this character's adaptation. If it's any other reason than that, then I don't appreciate that. If it's just, again, creativity by committee, and if you just feel, oh, we need to check some boxes, and then we as the audience can sense that and know that it's where it's coming from, where that place is. It's not because it's the best casting or whatever, not for any creativity reason. Like Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury is inspired casting. It's great. He embodied that character and he did a fantastic job. And I think if any other reason a casting is made that just doesn't have anything to do with who is the best person, who can bring this character to life, what is the best thing, then we can sense that, and it just doesn't turn out the way that they want it to, again, because we know what the motivation is behind it.
That's exactly it, Elaine. That's exactly how I felt with this. It's like, you're not doing it because you know, this is a good creative idea that we just came up with or whatever. You're doing it because, we must address something, you know, like the whole, it reminded me of Rings of Power. Like the whole, we got to have a black female dwarf. Why? Because it's redressing grievances that people have had for years and years and years. So we have to redress all of these issues. And it's like, nobody cares about that. Okay. If you're doing it for a creative purpose, that's one thing. But if you're doing it because you're trying to suck up to somebody, or you're trying to make it look like you're the good guy, and man, when we was 23 and 21, we was all about white, whatever. It's like, hey, man, look, keep it a buck. Don't try to go back in time and change up what you did in the past, to make up for what woke Hollywood wants you to do today. All right, just tell the story that you told back then, that everybody loved back then, and leave it at that. If you want to go forward and say, hey, you know what, going forward, I'm going to create more characters with a diverse background or whatever, fine. I have zero problem with that. But to try to go back and gender swap and race swap and do all of this trash, it pisses me off, man, because it's showing that you don't really have the creativity to just move forward, tell something new. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing here, man?
Here's what Kirkman should have done. He should have just said, hey, I created this character. She's female. And here are all the potential storytelling possibilities we could have done with this character.
Yeah.
And run with that, as opposed to say, hey, I don't like the fact that we don't have enough women in it. So I'm going to take this character out and replace it with a female version of that character.
Yeah, exactly. Does it add any value to it? Like, by changing the character, is it going to add value? Is it going to add anything to the story other than, well, we were so male. It was just focused on white males back then. So we're going to change it up now.
Yeah.
Like,
and what they
okay, but does that change the story in any way? Does that add any value? Is it something that you wanted to do back then, but didn't have the chance? Like, what does it add other than the fact that, I'm virtue signaling? That's pretty much it. That's
the point is, when they do these things, it rarely moves the needle. It doesn't grow the audience because the storytelling at that point, it lessens the stories that the real character once had.
There's only one example where this has ever worked. There's only one example where this has ever worked, and it's Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah. But then they wrote her Starbuck, right? And
because they actually wanted to do it, because
it was the motivation for it
with that new character that they could explore.
Correct.
That they didn't explore in the first place.
Because it was organic. It was
and see, with Doom Part 1, they gender swapped Leah Kynes and Sharon Duncan Brewster, and she's actually a great actress. And she actually had a good understanding of the role. It was nice to hear her talk about it. She knew about the character, so that was nice. But the portrayal just didn't. So the reasoning behind it was apparently John Spates' idea, and said that the message that character embodies, something like the ecological themes, which they barely scratched the surface of that. But they said that it made more sense coming from a woman, but they didn't even do that. It didn't even make sense. And then they also ruined the fact that Chani is related to Liet. They didn't even put that in there. So they missed that emotional depth and that connection that Chani would have with Paul and losing a loved one in that way. So again, like a decision made purely from checking a box has the opposite effect. It's not made for storytelling. And when it's not, then you're missing that emotional depth that could have been there. But because you felt that you had to put something in there that made you feel better about yourself, but that did not make sense from a creativity standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, the movie suffered as a result. The art always suffers.
And by the way, Lane, if you go on Amazon and you look up the Chani Halloween costume, her name is Chani Kynes. It says in the description of the Halloween
movie doesn't say that though.
That's
and that would have been so much better if they had that.
Right, but it's in the marketing, which is weird for like
that
a costume for Halloween.
Yeah, that is such an important distinction when it comes to me.
Because a lot of people actually think that Chani is that Liet is her mother, but they never say that in the movie. And that actually would make more sense if they wanted to have something more contemporary, but of her feelings of why she feels the way she does about certain things. But no, they never confirmed that.
All I can say is I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's all right.
I know. Sorry. Sometimes my lower brain activates and I go.
Well, here's another race swap that worked from the Phantom Menace, the Equalizer, Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Queen Latifah.
Well, and the thing with Kirkman,
not the Queen Latifah. Yeah,
with Kirkman opening his mouth about this is dumb because like a lot of the fans were just like, oh, well, maybe they're just doing this thing where they're gonna make it to where they made it a female character so that it could be a romance for Oliver or something. People were like coming up with reasons as to why they did it, and because they weren't bludgeoning you over the head with it, right? Like they didn't make a big deal about, oh, we swapped the character, and then now he comes out and says shit like this, and it makes it worse because everybody was defending him. It's like if you had said nothing, it probably would have just went under the radar. People would have been like, fine, because this show's really loved.
Although I think Kirkman was about to get swallowed, and that's why he had to make a statement like that.